Okay, so now for something completely different, we're going to talk about messaging, spam, smishing, campaign. No, I'm just kidding. This is the innovation part of the day. So we have this session and a couple more sessions, and then we have the drinks. So I know all of you are waiting for that. So we'll try to go through the material very quickly. But before I start, I'm going to do a short presentation to talk about exactly what, or explain what the cloud edge is and how it relates to telcos and innovation and monetization. Of course, everyone wants to make money, especially with the billions that have been invested in 5G. But before I start the presentation, I'll ask my panelists to introduce themselves first, starting with Peter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Peter Wilcox. So I lead 5G product monetization at Bell, which essentially means that we provide the enablers to help our enterprise customers to really leverage the full power of the 5G networks in our ecosystem partners.
Good afternoon, my name is Patrick Vincent, I work for Amazon Web Services, and I support our telecom operators in Canada on our go-to-market partnerships, especially Telco Edge.
Roger Billings with Cradlepoint, part of Ericsson, and I live in the future and deal with stuff that's coming up and coming, and deal with a lot of the 5G and where the trends are and where things are going.
And I'm Doug Makashima, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for SummitTech. We're based in Montreal. We're known in the industry, actually in the messaging space, in the telco space. We've been in telecom for 20 plus years, both on the infrastructure side as well as on the client or the device side. Traditionally in messaging and IP communications, but in the last 4 or 5 years, we've been focused on bringing some innovation by the way, I will tie this back into messaging as well later, but we're focused now on this VR live stream platform we call Audience, and it's very relevant to the mobile edge. And so this panel will be focusing on edge computing and our application, again, called Audience. That is a commercial application. Now, it's not just a commercial for SummitTech. The reason why I'm showcasing this application is because we've commercialized it. We've done some trials with 20 different operators around the world, but including here with AWS and Bell. So it's a great use case to show the power of 5G and edge computing. So the first question, well, what is the cloud edge? Everyone knows what the cloud is. Everybody uses enterprise applications, websites, e-commerce. If you came here with Uber on a flight, you use the cloud. Everybody uses the cloud. Everybody knows what the cloud is. So what does it mean to bring the cloud to the edge? Well, 5G is great, right? It's higher bandwidth. It has lower latency. But that lower latency doesn't help you if you get from your cell phone, your mobile phone, to the base station in 20 milliseconds if the data and the application is on the cloud somewhere in the US, in Canada, or in the region, and it takes maybe 1 second, 3 seconds to get the response back. Now, some applications are fine if you're browsing the web, but if you have some of these newer, innovative, low latency applications, that's not going to cut it anymore. So you need to bring the cloud to the edge. Now, what is the edge? It's the edge of the network, but it turns out there are a lot of definitions of the edge. And so on this slide, you can see you can go from the internet exchanges, the carrier core network, actually on the device itself or the enterprise. So the edge can be on the other side of the pipe, on the broadband or the wireless connection. It can be in the enterprise, in this hotel, in your house, the broadband connection. So the edge of the network, there's a lot of definitions. But for the purposes here, we're going to focus on the telco edge. So the cloud edge really means that it's kind of like behind the base station or in the core network. So, but the whole point is you're bringing the cloud resources closer to the end users and the enterprises. Why do that? Well, it turns out that you can actually have the best of both worlds. So cloud is great for a whole host of reasons, but local computing still is really important and very powerful as well. What if you could get the best of both worlds? So what are those? So again, people understand cloud scalability, mobility, resilience, economics, right? That's the cloud. But local computing, low latency, reliability, reduced backhaul. If you put everything in the cloud, especially high data intense applications, you're going to be putting a lot of bandwidth back and forth across the internet, your broadband, which could be costly, could be bad and create a lot of congestion for operators. And then there's data localization, so you might not want to put all that data in the public cloud because you have sensitivity around some of the data. So as you can imagine, there's a whole host of applications that use cloud, and many are deploying today. Many of this is actually commercial. It's not just innovation we're talking about here. But we're going to focus on this panel, I think, more in the retail, media, entertainment, and I think maybe also an example in the fintech financial space. So again, I mentioned SummitTech. We've known more for IP communications and messaging in the operator and carrier space, but we've actually been kind of the it company in 5G and MEC for over 4 years. We were AWS's launch partner for what they call Wavelength. That's their cloud edge, basically bringing AWS to the cloud 3 years ago when they launched it commercially with Verizon in the US. And then more recently, we did a joint case study and a POC with AWS and Bell here in Canada with a Canadian brand called Ritsac, and it was a live stream shopping example. So what is Audience? It's a live stream 360 platform for two-way, very interactive and immersive streaming. Yes, there are a lot of live streaming applications today, but we make use of edge computing to deliver a much more immersive experience. First of all, it's 360, it's 8K, it's two-way, and it's very interactive and immersive. So it's two-way, we have messaging built in, we have e-commerce chat. Oh, see, I told you I'd relate this back to messaging. So we actually do use, guess what, IMS and RCS messaging in the platform. So we have full chatbots, full e-commerce. So today, what does streaming look like? Well, it's passive, linear, one way, not very exciting. You have one view, it's two-dimensional, linear, you don't have the 360 view. So what our Audience platform makes it completely two-way, engaging, interactive. You can see the entire view. We can put a camera here in the middle and we can see everybody in the audience as well as the panel. It can be a concert, a mega concert, it can be a sporting event, a fashion show. In this case, it's a cooking show. And again, it's two-way interactive with chat, but also text chat with also video calls. You can actually bring somebody up live onto the video wall into the live event. So how do we use edge? Well, I'm not going to get too technical here, but let's just say that all these red lines and blue lines are bad. So it means there's a lot of latency and there's a lot of traffic going on, which is really bad, costly, and the application actually wouldn't work. So with edge computing, you can see now these red lines and these blue lines are significantly reduced. And here's a picture. So I say 8K and 360, but we know, because it's our app on the phone, that you are only looking at a certain part of the whole 360 view. So we only send the high quality tiles for that view. And 8K, my phone is only 1K or 2K, so why do I need 8K? Well, if you zoom in, you still get full HD, full high quality experience. So we do this using edge computing. So I'll do a quick little video here and then we'll get to the panel.
SummitTech's Audience immersive 360-degree live streaming platform delivers a high-quality interactive event experience to virtual audiences. It enables content creators to send high-quality live 8K 360 video in real time to enable engaging two-way remote participation experiences for live events. Audience brings live events into the metaverse. 5G and MEC are key enabling technologies, allowing for delivery of bandwidth-efficient streams at high scale to participants' smartphones, PCs, and VR headsets. Let's now explore a specific commercial use case: live stream shopping.
Welcome to Live 360 VR Shopping. With the advent of 5G, online shopping will be transformed from a flat, linear process to an exciting, immersive, interactive experience. Live stream 360-degree shopping with chatbots. Users access live 360 streams through mobile devices or head-mounted displays, connect and interact with friends or presenters and influencers, and check out through VR chatbots. It doesn't get more real and engaging. A new revenue-generating service.
Things are getting exciting. Stay tuned for some interesting news. Until then, sit back and enjoy the clips.
Okay, so that's Audience, and sorry, let me just get to there. Okay, there we go. So this is just one application, live streaming, 360, e-commerce enabled, but there are many, many other applications for edge computing, and we have a great panel to talk about that. We have a representative from an operator, top-tier operator, leading operator here in Canada, as well as a hyperscaler, and we have somebody who's an expert in 5G and connectivity talk all about this stuff. So let me open it up first So obviously this is very innovative, futuristic, but it's here today, it's commercial. So let's hear from the panelists first, just one by one, about some of your take on the cloud edge benefits and monetization.
Sure, I'll dive in first, so thanks, Doug. So yeah, definitely, obviously the audience immersive retail application gives you an example of just one vertical-based solution. But I think the difference about 5G, right, is that it's really an industrial class network, right? So whether it's an immersive retail or an industry 4.0 type application, the idea really is that the 5G network plus the MEC plus the devices, right, they all come together to enable that. So I think for the first time ever, as opposed to really good 4G networks that may be best effort, in a 5G world, you're really getting into a more industrial class network. So as an application provider, an enterprise, you can have real confidence, right, that you'll have deterministic speeds and really incredible experiences for your customer.
Patrick?
Yeah, wonderful. And I would just say as AWS, we just saw the demand for applications needing to be closer to the edge. So I don't want to give everybody a cloud 101, but we have centralized regions and large geographic areas in Canada and Montreal. But there's a big gap between Saskatchewan and Montreal, for example, right? So we've seen our partners across the globe put edge offerings in. And on the public network side with partners like Bell and Verizon here in North America, we thought, let's pair our infrastructure with the mobile networks and provide an integrated offering. And then a lot of organizations, some of you here today, build on top of AWS and offer your solution offerings. So in a tri-party, we can build go-to-market motions in a better together story.
Yeah, from my point of view, being part of the infrastructure, being able to satisfy multiple use cases for both the fixed side of things as well as the mobility side, for instance, a police car or a mobile drone or something like that, being able to use MEC and take that processing power and put it very close to the user so the latency is so low really helps make new applications possible, especially with the ability to do computer vision and things like that.
So I think with 5G and edge computing, there's an environment that really sets the stage for more innovation. So obviously there are some use cases that we can all understand and imagine and are already being deployed, but the next level, the next Industry 4.0 or next innovative consumer apps are still to come. Tell us about the role of accelerators. I know that Bell has a program.
Sure. Yeah, so Bell, like many operators, have launched what we call the 5G developer program, right? Because the idea with the 5G network is we know that we have to provide tools for customers, whether they be enterprises or even startups, to actually just experiment, right? Whereas in the past, if you think about 4G networks, it was really available to everybody. Whereas in this case, we want to put those tools in the hands of the customer. So I'll give you an example where we worked with Drone Delivery Canada, which is a transportation company. And we leveraged the local AWS MEC wavelength zone. But we also leveraged the Cradlepoint modem. It wasn't on the drone, it was actually in the landing zone, right? So it's a good example where we used machine vision, and it was really about doing observation of the landing zone. And we used machine learning, right, to be able to train that model so that you didn't have to actually have an operator there in the landing zone, and then it could automatically send an alert, right, to the operator to stop the drone or whatnot, right? So the idea there is that we brought together the hyperscaler, right, being AWS, Cradlepoint of the modem, and Bell together. And the reason why I wanted to explain that is because that's usually what the motion looks like, right, for an enterprise or a startup, is that it's usually about us providing those technologies to the enterprise and letting them to actually see the results of it, experiment a little bit, and then scale it.
So I like the fact that you didn't say lab or POC, right? I mean, this is commercial, right? I mean, you can bring these innovators, these entrepreneurs, startups, or big companies can come in and deploy with Bell, AWS, Cradlepoint, right? I mean, it's available today.
They get to experience it firsthand, understand the KPIs, understand how it helps their business, right, and get real results right away.
So how do you monetize? That's the key question here. How does an operator become a service provider again?
Yeah, so our motivation is obviously because we pre-invest in the network nationally, right? So we're obviously believing in the promise that most businesses will want to take advantage of that. So our goal there is to seed enough of these startups and enterprises to see those benefits that they then see the benefits, right? And then obviously with their vendor partners showcase those results, right? And then that positions Bell and our partners as those thought leaders, right, to help them with their digital transformation, which we'll obviously be able to monetize.
And so Patrick, I know you said you didn't want to get too technical, but I mean, who here knows what EC2 is? Anybody? Okay, just a couple handful, but that's, for developers, that's important because when you say I use AWS, typically EC2 is the instance that you use, the cloud, VM. And as developers, so we use that in the cloud, but now you bring cloud to the edge. Does that mean it's more technical and more difficult? No, it's basically having that same EC2 in the edge. So as a developer, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to change anything. It's just there, and you call this wavelength, right? So where is wavelength today? Is it commercial or is it still in the lab?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wavelength is commercial. We have 5 global partners, so Bell, Verizon, Vodafone, KDDI, and SKT. I think we have over 30 locations globally and growing. Those partnerships are growing. So in most of you Canadian, if you're deploying applications in the United States, we have 19 zones today, 1 in Canada, several in Europe. And to Doug's point, especially for small businesses and startups, when we try to innovate and grow them here in Canada, it's imperative that we give them a global market, and that's one of the important things about AWS in our point of view here is that if we're going to enable these organizations on 5G, they need to have a single unified pane for which they can develop, deploy, and test, and not have to go to every carrier across the globe and renegotiate or get a separate hardware platform. It has to be easy to grow, scale, and test, and that's been our strategy.
And Roger, tell us a little bit about how Cradlepoint is helping to commercialize this and what your role is.
So our role in commercializing is to be able to provide the functionality and the integration between the operator, the enterprise, and the MEC provider, or AWS in this case. And so we provide the glue that sticks everything together. Take, for instance, the financial industry of where we have bank branches, and there's a lot of equipment in a bank branch. And I've had 3 major banks in 3 different countries come to me and say, well, how do we get rid of all that stuff in the branch and just make it wireless? They get cut around having to have a fiber there where the cut is done. They want to go wireless 5G. They'll give the responsibility of keeping the network up to the operator, but they also want to put MEC in there so that now I can save money by instead of having 50 of these things in every single branch, I can have a per city type MEC instance. And so that's where we play, is provide that glue that links everything together.
So I find it very interesting that you have an operator and you have AWS, a hyperscaler, sitting here on the same panel and collaborating like we see it's happening here. And maybe that's not intuitive for some folks in the room because, after all, we have a panel coming up, OTT versus carrier messaging. But maybe talk a little bit about this partnership and collaboration, why that's so important. I know they're looking because I'm out of time, but I want that 2 minutes back that And I think you guys do too, right? You want us to finish. So
I think particularly if you think about enterprise customers, right? As long as you focus on what that enterprise customer needs, it's pretty natural that you're going to have to come together, right, in order to bring partners together, right? So I think AWS, to their credit, laser focused on what is that fully end-to-end customer experience, right? So that's why it was a natural for Bell to, work with AWS and Cradlepoint, because they expect us to be able to bring all those ecosystem partners together. Right? So.
Yeah, and then I would just say from the AWS side, you can't access cloud computing without the internet. So telcos are actually natural partners for us. We can build really robust solutions and go to market and provide value-added services together. And I think if you're interested at all, you can go to aws.com/telecom. We have many global partnerships with telecom providers.
Now, I mean, we have Bell here and AWS, but obviously there are other operators, there are other cloud vendors, right? So we're talking about the interoperable cloud edge, telco edge cloud, right? So that means standards, interoperability, no fragmentation, because in mobile everyone just wants it to work, right? So can you just talk a little bit about that? I know we're out of time, but just maybe one comment each.
Well, from my point of view, being somebody who's traveling the world, setting up 5G in a bunch of different areas, I am seeing all the hyperscalers everywhere because the telcos, while they're big, they're slow moving, and the hyperscalers much quicker to be able to get that information out. And as you put that information in, or that MEC type equipment within the operator, it's a 1 + 1 = 3 type scenario. It's really puts the best network with the best MEC side of things.
Yeah, and I would just say, the more you come to a standard, the easier we make it for people to develop and deploy, the more that we'll all benefit in the long run.
5GFF?
Yeah, I would just add that, yeah, Bell is, like many telecoms, part of like 5GFF, TM Forum, MEF, right? But I think that's why the days now are more about common standards, right? Ensuring that the enterprise doesn't have to, they can build once, right? And then just scale globally, right? All businesses need to be global, right? So that's the nature of needing standards and APIs and so on. Right? So.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm out of time, over time. They're shooing us off the stage, but Susan, sorry?
Wondered if there was any questions
any
from
questions?
the room.
I guess we do have a little time. No questions? Okay, well, if you have questions, we have a little table in the other area there, and we have a small demo. You can ask us anything you want about the Telco Edge Cloud, and you can see the Audience app live as well. Okay, thanks, panelists. Thank you.